In the wake of last week's presidential debate, was I the only one who thought I was watching an old rerun of Matlock? Find out next on The Daniel Natal Show. Now that the preliminaries are out of the way, people are asking substantive questions about some of the things that were said during the debate. Joe Biden, for instance, called America institutionally racist for the 1,000th time. See here.
The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it.
Watching this portion of the debates, I had a shower thought. If America is institutionally racist, what does that say about Joe Biden, who's been in politics for 47 years? He is the institution. Might that racism have something to do with Joe Biden giving the eulogy to former Klans member Robert Byrd, who he called his mentor?
For a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
Or maybe it was the time back in 1977 when Joe Biden opposed school busing to enforce integration, at which point he said that he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. His comments were so unsettling that even his running mate Kamala Harris said that some of his positions back then made her feel uncomfortable. But of course, the compliant media will never be bringing these things up as we head into the final stretch of the election. Which brings us to our next story, their debate on energy policy.
If you look at his plan,
Nothing
his
to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate.
According to geopolitical strategist Peter Zeihan, shale represents a huge advance in America's attempts to attain energy independence. People really don't think about it, but energy is a bigger cost to businesses than even labor is. So if American energy prices start coming down because of the superfluity of oil and gas and coal, then a lot of manufacturing plants are going to want to leave China and East Asia and bring manufacturing back to the consumer market of the United States. And the only thing that would really stop this gravitational flow of businesses from East back to West would be repressive legislation, things like the Green New Deal, that would be a huge hindrance to America's ability to permit companies to, harvest this energy that would help the United States. For instance, in the book The Colder War by Marin Katusa, he talks about the fact that America lost its dominance in uranium due to legislation. And so we went from the number one producer and we went to, I think, to number 16 now, giving dominance to Kazakhstan, Russia, and a bunch of the other Central Asian republics that are within the Russian sphere of influence. And this didn't happen because of American technological deficits. This happened sheerly due to legislation. And so our industry had been hamstrung not by any deficiency in the United States or in the American worker. We have the best engineers in the world, the best technologies in the world. 1/5 of all U.S. homes are, of course, powered by nuclear power plants, which require uranium. But due to legislation, this has all been artificially hamstrung. And so what Biden is talking about is using legislation to hamstring fracking, shale, and all these energy production advances so that all of the factories remain in China. And so this is a huge issue that we'll have to bear watching, and we'll cover it closer, which leads us on to our next story. Democrats prefer to vote by mail, but as election day nears, more say they'll head to the polls. At which point we read, nearly 7 in 10 voters, including 89% of Democrats, 61% of independents, and nearly half of Republicans support it, even as the bulk of Republican voters, 68%, say they plan to vote in person, unchanged from their preference over the summer. Reading the article, I had another shower thought. No, not that shower thought. What if mail-in voting is not such a wise policy to pursue? According to John Stuart Mill in 1861 in his book Considerations on Representative Government, in Chapter 10, we read, "The proposal which has been thrown out of allowing the voting papers to be filled at the voter's own residence and sent by the post, or called for by a public officer, I should regard as fatal." This point was brought out by the Washington Post, who had an article entitled, "Mail-in Ballots Were Part of a Plot to Deny Lincoln Re-Election in 1864. In it we read, Traveling to Baltimore in the fall of 1864, Orville Wood had no way of knowing he would soon uncover the most elaborate election conspiracy in America's brief history. Wood was a merchant from Clinton County in the most northeastern corner of New York. As a supporter of President Abraham Lincoln, he was tasked with visiting troops from his hometown to look after the local ticket. New York legislators had only established the state's mail-in voting system in April with the intent of ensuring the suffrage of white troops battling the Confederate Army. So basically, long story short, in 1864, just 3 years after John Stuart Mill warned against it in England, the United States encountered a huge election fraud initiative in which they were going to use the ballots of soldiers to try to flip the election against Lincoln. And this is a point that kind of cropped up again in the 2017 book Microtrends Squared, which was written by Mark Penn. Penn was a pollster for the Democratic Party, and in fact, he ran Hillary Clinton's campaign back in 2008. And he warned in his book in 2017, so very recently, that vote by mail has dangers because organizers and spouses can demand to see the ballots of their family members. Organizers can stand over the shoulders of seniors in nursing homes. Only a secret ballot in a voting booth insulates Americans from these peer influencers. Of course, the book was published in 2017, 3 years before 2020, when the narrative was changed and we were told to love mail-in voting. And so far, we're going to have to keep on top of this emerging issue, especially as ballots are being found in garbage cans and there's all sorts of chicanery happening. And we will be following this story here on The Daniel Natal Show. Before you is a moral puzzle. If you push this button, something advantageous will happen for you. But be warned, if you do, a pompous elitist who you do not know and who you will never meet will be heckled mercilessly. The choice is yours. Choose wisely.